break, Razaq, we're talking about the fact that government must admit that it alone cannot handle this matter of palliatives. And we're pointing at Kwara State asking workers that as against 5 working days, they have 3 days to come to the office. And then Edo State has stood the same line, telling workers as against 5 days, you have 3 days of coming to work. And they have even gone ahead to increase the salary of staffers from 30,000 naira to 40,000 naira. That's for Edo State now. And they are also looking at having virtual classrooms. We are seeing some state governments beginning to take certain steps, owning up to the reality and responsibility that they have to do something to cushion the effect on their citizens. Sijibomi. Yeah.
Yes, like he rightly said, palliatives are in different dimensions, and it doesn't have to be cash transfer, which is very, very obsolete. And let me just cite some examples. I think when the Western world were trying to introduce EV vehicles, because of climate change, bring down the carbon emission and all that. The Ontario government, I think so, did something. If you have a car, if you want to buy an EV, $1,000 was a discount, and it doesn't come to you in cash. The car producer discounts it, then your other car, your gasoline car, when you're taking it to be scrapped, you get another 1,000. The UK government will tell you, if you're using EV, you don't pay car tax for a period of time. The German government budgeted like 3.4 billion euros for that, given different, and these things, they don't come in cash. It's just discounts from different manufacturers and producers. Now, if the state government wants to parley with the federal government, what can we do? Apart from 3 days holiday, 2 days holiday, whereby you can work 3 days in a week, the private sector too must be encouraged to do such. In my own company, we're trying to do something like that now, because COVID showed us that you can really work from home. And after COVID, we all got lessons, and all of a sudden, after 6 months, everybody went back to status quo. So what has changed? We were effective at that time, so we can be effective. Another thing is secondary schools, primary schools, levies. The state governments can scrap all that. When parents don't need to pay those monies, and certain days, maybe on Mondays, when there's free transportation for the kids, borne by the government, there are buses everywhere. These are things that are done, not in Western world, but in neighboring countries, African countries, that we can emulate. So it doesn't have to be cash transfer of 5,000 to people. That's one person will just come up with fictitious names and claim 100 people. So there are so many approaches to these things. We just need to think outside the box. I want to commend the governments of Edo State and Kwara State. They've started something laudable. What are other states doing? So those are the lines I think we should think outside the box, get good approach to all these things, and give people discounts. You can even have, now we can see that the cost of LPG is coming down. Some things will definitely come down. Those
are one of the things that they are asking. They tabled before government that there was a CNG agreement, talking about the compressed natural gas agreement that they had in 2021. They're asking government to revisit that, especially we were looking at converting some automobiles for gas. Instead of using petrol, that should be used for gas. But then we see that plan hasn't come into fruition, so to speak. All right?
It will. And you see, we must encourage governments to look in this direction. If you don't ascertain the capacity of your government, that is the greatest disservice the people can do to that country. At the moment, the capacity of the government cannot carry the pandemic that may likely come up, because the pandemic, because the crisis of subsidy removal is not being felt by Nigerians alone. So once it's felt outside and become a pandemic, that's the definition of pandemic. As you all know, and everybody at home knows this too. We have to design this model and encourage the government to toe the line. So also, there are other organized groups that the government must also seek for the services. I'm talking about the civil society organizations. you have to also engage them in explaining to the people the roles all of us must play. There are people, there are institutions that will not trust persuasion from the government, but they trust persuasion from the labor, the civil society, the religious houses. So government must begin to invite all these sectors one after the other to assist. It's just a 6-month window period, in my own estimation. It will filter away. So, like I said, after that 6-month window period, we will recover again and we'll be back on track. And that is the direction labor is not looking at. You will sit down in your office. You will not want to do things your colleagues all over the world do. You will still be adopting Payemodu style, Sijibomi style, Bafia style, military era, where we all know that the coming to power of military is by coercion. So we left them without borrowing any idea. Sort it out yourself. And that was why you see this method of trying to crumble the economy by the NLC, by the TUC, by ASU during the military. And that is what was transferred to democratic institutions that we are today. And that is why they have refused to admit that their role at the beginning of taking care of welfare of the staff begins with them. And like we have explained, we have explained this to labor day in, day out. In fact, to the extent that we said that the economic model will operate in Nigeria that gives too much concentration of resources of this. They say it's not their business. They say it's just talk to government. I say, why can't, even ASU. We explained to ASU that you have to carry some legislation. And they get angry. When we engage the civil society, they get angry. They say, why? As if they are not the same people that criticize government. I've not had any minister slapping an LSE chairman before. But when you engage them, they get angry. They say, why are you supporting the government? I say, we are not supporting the government. We are telling you to do the news. So on this note too, we are telling our government to also explain the responsibility of labor to them. I can't be the one doing the talking. I can't be the one that is, and the people must also know the danger of insisting that the government must sort out the subsidy crisis. The guys that are benefiting from the subsidy as weaponize it, they turn into phobia. That if you want to remove it, they quickly start the propaganda against it. Such that the expected sacrifice we expect from the people, because it's going to come with some pain. Nigeria don't want to listen to it. They have weaponized it. No, it's too painful, you can't do that. They subsidize agriculture, they subsidize. So for Nigeria who wants to be patriotic, who want to understand the pain that comes with the removal, they will say, see, no.
It's difficult for them to understand.
It's because it's only coming from the government. Get trusted institutions too. You have to persuade the labor to be part of it. So we are telling our colleagues now, our comrades, that you cannot be sitting in your chair all the time, rocking, and be declaring a strike. It's your duty as well.
They have come out to explain that government is going to bring up palliatives to cushion the effect.
Their definition of palliative is salary increase. And that should come later. And like I've explained to you that the danger of first looking at that alternative is that it's always made a nonsense of the salary increase. What you need to do with your money should be what you should address. When you go to office, you pay the same fee. When you want to pay school fees, when your rent has not increased, when in your office, the federal government gives you a 6-month tax holiday. These are things you spend your money on. And you discover that it has not increased. So, but if the government don't talk to you, you will not be willing to talk to government. If government don't talk to landlords, I will increase my rent. If you don't talk to transport owners, there's a price for you also to pay in nation building.
But transporters will tell you that they are buying the fuel at the new price.
And that is the missing link. The first thing you must let all of us understand, there must be a price we will all pay if we have to come out of this together. If you are not willing to pay a price, that means you are not getting it right. There must be a price. I am not saying that you should buy fuel of 20 naira and make 10 naira with it. If it is possible, and part of the explanation the government will offer is promises. That is why you see some sectors in the rest of the world, they will say that this sector is very patriotic to Nigeria. And you see Nigerians offering support. Maybe it may be telecoms. When telecoms in America, when the racket was broken, Americans were happy. So any policy that favors telecoms in America, Americans are happy about it. So on this note too, any sector that plays a role that gives consolation to Nigeria, we must not forget them. Any policy that makes them happy back too. And that is kind of promise the government will make, that in your sector, this is what I'm going to roll out for you if I'm come out of this. If you support me to come out of this crisis, I'm going to do those things for you. So it's not about looking for money to borrow, to increase the salary of workers. That is not what we should be looking at the moment.
So you're not in support of the 200,000 increment that they are talking about?
That's not possible.
For what? For what?
Salary.
Salary increase. The danger is what I've explained to you. So that's the danger.
I want to also talk about...
It's a step forward and 10 steps backward. You take a step forward and you take 10 steps backward.
You say it's not possible.
No,
why do you think it's not possible?
Even as of now, the government doesn't have enough money to pay for salaries and do every of their responsibilities. So you increase from a 30,000 to a 200,000. How many percent increase is that? So it's not possible for us to even. That means we're creating another problem. Every other thing skyrockets because when they hear the 200,000, everybody, inflates hikes their prices, and there is inflation. Then, I like to deal with specifics.
All right.
Now,
before you go into specifics, we need to go on a break. When we return, we'll come to that. Stay with us.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at this matter of fuel subsidy removal, NLC's reaction to stop the strike they initially planned, and the demands they put forward before the government. And Sijibomi, you were talking about looking at specifics. And I'll also like for you to talk about this matter of trust, because Razaq has talked about sacrifices that Nigerians must make. Government must understand that they cannot handle this alone. Every hand must be on deck. But there's the issue of trust in the government. If we support government and government makes promises to deliver once we've gone out of this phase, will the government not renege on the promises it has made? Because we have seen that with successive governments.
Two things you've asked now. What you've asked now is what I'm going to discuss. The two things I'm going to discuss, we address both. Now, we mentioned CNG, compressed natural gas.
Yes.
This was done in 2021. Timmy Silva held a press conference and said subsidy removal is coming. We didn't know it was going to take 18 months. That was 2021, December, if I'm right. And Labour was there. The government promised that they were going to convert 1 million cars.
Yes.
And have over 500, I think 580 centers. And within 18 months, they were going to do at least 500,000 conversion and have maybe 200 and something thousand centers. Labour was there. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. What's the data of the number of cars that have been converted? And we were talking about buses, transportation buses, commercial taxis, and all of that. And the government was going to pay for 50%. That was what we were talking about. So if it was going to cost like, give or take, 250,000 naira, government was willing to pay 125. Those are the palliatives we are looking at. So what did Labour do?
They are asking government now to go and revisit that.
Did Labour do anything to ensure or monitor that process? That was what he was talking about.
Now they are revisiting it.
We will see what they will do again. That's one. In terms of the government, we're talking about the Labour angle, the government angle. Government is a continuum. So yes. I don't want to hear this government just came to power. What has the government used the regulatory agencies to do, to achieve? I traveled from Ekiti to Lagos, I think 3 days ago, and had a little hitch on the road, and I was at the fuel station, and people were just coming. How much is the fuel? 500 naira. They turned back, not because it was 500 naira, but because that filling station, if you buy 10 liters from there, the best you could get was 6.5 liters. They said they rather go to Ife Modakeke Road because it was Ilesha and go to a particular filling station that I won't mention because of advert, but which people know sell far, far below and precise metering. It's owned by a couple and they've been recognized by the government. Yeah. So what are the regulatory agencies, what's government doing in terms of that? Then when we come to trust, how do you trust people? Who do Nigerians trust? Nigerians don't trust the government, but they trust the imams, they trust the pastors. The pastors will tell them.
They are religious leaders.
Yes, the religious leaders. They trust them, they trust the economic leaders. Especially for people that are in that sector, the manufacturers, the leaders of the economy. So what the government has to put those people on board. So I was excited when I saw the president, when he was president-elect, visit a Tony Elumelu. Because we can see what Tony Elumelu is doing in Africa. So when you bring those people on board, when those people tell you, this is what the government is doing, and this is how we're going to help the government to achieve it, people trust that more than the government. So that's why he's saying all hands have to be on deck. Everybody has to come on board to make sure that this thing works. Because we are at a point, it's called the precipice, whereby any mistake on any other decline, we bury this country, God forbid, because we cannot continue to go like this.
Right. Now, the federal government and the organized labor has talked about reviewing the cash transfer. I know we have talked about that, but the money is already on the ground. What do we do with it if we are saying that cash transfer is not the way to go and all of that? How do we address that aspect? We have that money on the ground. What can the government do with it such that it gets to every single person, whether you are private sector, whether you are whichever sector you belong to? Because as it is, not everyone will get that money. And even those who get that money, it may just last them a day. If someone calculated it and it's just about 5,000 naira, so to speak, how should government go about that?
Well, first and foremost, such a gift from government is designed in the liberal economy to assist the low-class people to be able to even up in the middle class. In terms of crisis at the moment, the target is not the higher class Nigerian. So it's for that sector. So for people who say it is not, it's in line. It's a thing that government must be doing periodically, but it's not necessarily a thing that you should be monetizing. When commodity owners, sellers, know that what you got is not cash transfer, there won't be urge. Because the recurring decimal in business is profit. Once I know you are my customer, and you are rich, which I know you are. If you come to buy something from me, I'll add the natural thinking of commerce is that I may add 1 or 2 naira because practically it's a free market. I will add something for when someone with a economic life that is not as buoyant as you come, I have a price for. So the moment people know on streets everywhere that they are saying extra 5,000 naira, this window period of 1 week, let me get my own share from it. So that's natural. And that is why it must be done in such a way that it's not necessarily a thing. It can be converted. We have products in Nigeria today that is not imported from outside Nigeria. So it can be converted to foodstuffs, can be converted to so many essential things of life, soaps. It can even be used as subsidy for people whose children attend certain schools. With that, it's traceable. If you do that, it's traceable. But when you say people should be getting cash, it's filtered into the, and that is why government should redesign the model. So it's the good intention. And that is why we need to insist, either by persuasion or by coercing the labor into involving in things like this. It's not just the kind of strike. Those are military era style strategy that we had expected labor should depart from. Even with ASU, we said ASU, put up some legislation, create a box and throw all of us inside. Make it difficult for us not to train our child in Nigeria through legislation. If all of us are in it together, you say they throw it out in one time, you should take it back. ANC was formed in 1912. They didn't get to power until 1997 or 1996. And you build around it social movement that it becomes a popular thing. March to National Assembly. This bill must be passed, must be passed, must be passed. But they don't want to do that. All they want to do is to traumatize us. Strike, strike, strike. I said it is wrong. And that's why government should not also limit the capacity of the civil society. There are civil society who say they must go on strike. For us, we say we don't want to go on strike. And we even use some of our plan that is indigenous. I addressed a press conference yesterday about where you put 2,000 of our members in a space from different parts of Yoruba land. And we insisted that we cannot continue to use Southwest as a launch pad. We are just coming from launch pad. You want to declare. I know that where it is most effective when you call rallies is the Southwest. So we don't want it again. We don't want anybody to hijack. And we hear rumors that something like that is in the offing. We want to target Lagos, we want to target Ibadan, we want to target Ogun. We said, no, we don't want to be part of it. So we demobilize our people. So if the strike had held, it would not be a popular strike in the Southwest because we demobilize our people. So, and it must not get to this point where we do that. It must be a thing that laborers will be willing to do all the time. There's a price control agency, and I insist, how much is a bag of rice? Labor don't know the factory price of it. They don't know up to now. Shoes, shirts, pure water, all those things. You must know what you use your money to buy. If it keeps coming down, nobody will be talking about a price increase. Yes. But every day is price increase. So that the money you will pay as a member to their post will keep increasing. And that's the target. And that's not fair on Nigerians. That is not fair on Nigerians. And that's why we are saying that labor has been unpatriotic since 1998. The welfare of labor, the workers that you are talking about, you are not for their welfare. If you are for their welfare, go and look at the prices of all these commodities. Discuss. You have your unions in all sectors, beverages, drug transport. Talk to them, persuade them that you can't continue like this. And address their challenges. If you have a peculiar challenges, address it. The only thing you drink that is local and pure water is the water. Every other thing is imported. I produce water, what talent do I have? Did you talk to me about it? Labor didn't talk to me about it. But they use my product as an example to get more money from the government that even a charter to pure water. Did you talk to me that can I bring down the price? You didn't talk to me. You didn't talk to people who produce other essential commodities. You just use that as an excuse to keep collecting, increasing the salary up so that your money you are collecting as fee every month will also increase. That is not fair. And that is not patriotic for Nigeria. So on this note,
you can't categorically they say that
we have engaged labor. That was what they said. Right. They said that is the best way they can do. To keep calling for strike. And I said, can that be the only way? It cannot be the only way. I told you that we sat down with Oshio Omale 8 times. On those 8 occasions, he insisted that the best way they can do is to go on strike. The best way they can do is to rally. So we parted way to them. I mentioned on television, let them say something that is not true about what I've said. We formed Labour and Civil Society Coalition until we pulled out and said that your intentions are not good for Nigerians. And this is what they have started again. And we said, Labour, that's not the way to go. Persuade the critical sectors alongside the government on how to ensure that the prices does not go out of hand. They didn't do that. They just call for strike. Is that how to run union? Is that how your colleagues all over the world? We all read theories of unionism and labor. We all read it. Is that what it was taught? Is that what we were taught to us in our schools, in the academy, not the world acquired about how to organize labor? Is that what we were taught? It is not.
Right. What I was talking about or referring to is the matter of it's because of the dues that they get from these unions. That's why they are not.
They measure it. They measure it. Each time we engage them, that where do we expect them to get money to run their affairs? Which affairs are they running? Are they manufacturers? Do they organize seminars?
That's the big question. But they are asking that the government revisit this matter of refineries. to look into ensuring that we get some refineries working, back to work. And I am wondering how possible that is going to be, looking at the fact that we have done turnaround maintenance, pouring so much money at addressing the issues with our refineries, and that is not happening. And what magic the government will be doing with regards to that. They're also looking into the aspect of transportation, our railways, and all of it coming on board, such that to make things easy for commuting for Nigerians.
So my question is, why will labor continue to conflict itself? 3 different times in this country, the refineries were said to be up for privatization. An arm of NLC, maybe Nopeng or Pengasan or all those arms of under the same label, said if they want to privatize the refinery, they will go on strike. The staff in they are under labor. That's the refinery staff, NMPC staff, and all of them. And they've been the real challenge of privatizing that refinery. I think where we got it wrong was the moment that Obasanjo privatized that refinery and Yar'Adua reversed it. Yeah. Because we wouldn't have been talking about Dangote refinery. People had already bought it. The same Dangote bought part of it at that time. And we didn't give it to him. Yar'Adua reversed it, and we are waiting for him maybe 20 years after. So those are the issues. How do you monitor? What has been your... He just made some points about what has Labour been doing about cost of
living.
Cost of living, cost of manufacturing. 1993, I was watching the debate between Tofa and Abiola was reeling out figures. I was asking Tofa, how much does it even cost for this commodity? As an economist, as somebody in labor, as somebody that wants to analyze a product, you must know the cost of manufacturing. You must know the gaps, the cost of transportation, all the different hitches on the road, and the taxes. I'm a businessman. When I want to move from Lagos to the east, I know that from Ore, there's what they called emission tax. The papers are like 24. You collect it. When you get to Bayelsa, they will tell you there is another one you must collect. Those papers costed 5,000 naira for a year. That's the cost of, you had that to cost of production, cost of transportation, cost of fuel. All these things labor is supposed to know. So that when we have how much it is to produce a can of needle, then we can tell the manufacturers and the people selling is not right. We can't do, we can't hike the price. Then that's when we can engage the government. That is when we can engage the manufacturers. But these things are not being done. The only thing labor has been doing, like I said from the beginning, is now becoming less effective. Because the way Nigeria is going, it will become a question of maybe the Southwest will follow you to go on strike, and the North will just be doing their own thing. When you get to the North, you feel like there is no strike. So you have to have a uniformity and unity of purpose. This is the goal. This is what we want to achieve. How do we approach it? How do we achieve it? Then labor must not seem to be lazy. That is how I see it. I stand to be corrected. If strike is the only instrument you have, and you can't come on TV and tell us how much is even the landing cost of diesel or of gasoline in Nigeria, in Benin Republic, in Niger, all the figures we are getting now are being done by journalists. Now, Cameroon is facing it because there is no more subsidy from Nigeria.
Right.
Benin Republic is facing it. Nigeria is carrying the burden of 6 African countries.
So I mean a pandemic.
Yeah, 6 African countries. And it's not trickling down to the man in the village. Where I have a farm, it's not trickling down to them. They will still buy the 500. And when you want them to do something for you, it will be a problem because they will hike the price as well.
Right.
So those are the things labor must do. know the cost of these items. You have different departments. You have different, instead of getting partisan. They were too involved in the last election, for God's sake.
Right. Right. Now, the government, on its part, has said it would channel these monies into certain sectors, health sector, education, and all of that.
Fantastic.
And which is, well, a lot of Nigerians have welcomed. But the concern for some Nigerians is, how do we insulate it from corruption? Yes, we know we want to channel it in these areas, but how do we ensure that Nigerians actually benefit and it is not napped by some other persons?
Well, the role of anti-graft agencies in the country today is becoming very effective. As you are aware, I'm championing a campaign for them. The noise about going after people found wanting on this matter should be the loudest at this moment. That if you want to be corrupt, please don't get near this money. Anybody found not be. In fact, any handler of such fund should be compelled to sign guarantee that this is the consequence of what you're about to do. Because when there's no consequence for crimes, that is where you see people committing it more. So if you can quickly look at the palliatives in the era, you can bring some 2 or 3, 4 people to jail to book now. It's going to be an indication that we are not going to take it easy this time around. And in looking at the future, we must also tell the government that we should not limit ourselves to Dangote refinery. There's a modular refinery that it must go. In fact, it should be compulsory that every state in this country must own a modular refinery, either private or owned by the government. That's the way to go. The way to remove the hand of the cabal, the moment you allow a particular crime to become internationalized, because the cabals have also had their own branch outside Nigeria, and they are part of the people's sponsoring propaganda of the hardship that will come. That's why we said the Southwest don't be part of it. We got information that some people want to turn the protest into mobocracy in the picture of an NSAS to discredit the government of the day. So what the government should also do within this window period is to also simplify how you can get these licenses. Give it to as many people as possible, like the telecom sector. The telecom sector today is a perfect example of what is going to come in terms of benefit to us on subsidy. If government does this, government persuade Nigeria that it's not only about me, it's about everybody. I think that this 6-month window period is going to be Eldorado, say from December upward for us, the oil sector.
All right. I believe that this is where we have to wrap things up, except you can, in 30 seconds, wrap up your thoughts on this.
Yes, I appreciate, after all said and done, I appreciate that Labour came to their right senses and they are trying to engage the government now. I want to see more of not just just all these committee meetings, but ensuring all those things about CNG, about price protection, consumer protection, all those things are being done. The different departments in Labour should spring forth and let's see them working. The same thing about the government. The regulatory agencies, SON, DPR, we must see them work.
All right. That's a fine place to leave the conversation, gentlemen. Thank you, policy analyst Sijibomi Adebiyi Benetand, as well as convener, Campaign for Dignity in Governance, Razaq Olokoba, for your time on the program.